I'm Debbie Reber, and welcome to Tilt Parenting, a podcast featuring interviews and conversations aimed at inspiring, informing, and supporting parents raising differently wired kids. I get a lot of questions from listeners looking for help navigating complex situations with their kids. So in this new mini episode format, I'll be answering listener questions, sometimes all on my own, sometimes with one of the parent coaches from the Differently Wired Club, and sometimes with an author or expert who's become a trusted resource. Think of these bite-sized, short and sweet parent-leaning episodes as a quick check-in. One question, one answer, featuring strategies, tips, or reframes that can support you in your parenting world. To submit a question for a parent-lean-in episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/lean-in. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. All right, here's today's episode. Hey everyone, it's Debbie Reber here from Tilt Parenting, and I am thrilled that parent coach Margaret Webb is joining me for today's Parent Lean-In episode. Margaret is a dear friend of mine. She was my very first parent coach. She's also the lead parent coach in my Differently Wired Club, where she provides a ton of support for the parents in that community. Margaret's also the author of the wonderful new book, A Hero's Journey in Parenting, Parenting the Child You Didn't Expect When You Were Expecting, which we recently talked about on this show. So if you haven't heard that, definitely go back and check out that episode. It'll be in the show notes page for this episode. Welcome, Margaret. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so excited to be here.
Awesome. Well, we have a great question to get into. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here goes. The question is, I've been around a lot of parents lately dealing with aggression in their kids. When I talk about Mona Della Hook's work or trying to understand what's underneath the behavior and how to prevent it, I am met with dismissal and some frustration. Do you know of an ethical way for a parent to protect themselves from a child's aggression in the moment, or anyone who talks about that? Of course, we want to create a sense of safety in the child's nervous system so that we can prevent this in the first place. But if we've missed that window, what are parents supposed to do? What a great question. And Margaret, I'm going to ask you to start today.
Yeah, I think this is such a great question. And it's something that is so common with parents, especially, when there is an escalation of emotions and behaviors with our kiddos. And so I do feel like even though you might be met with dismissal, or it might be like, oh, well, that doesn't matter. I think it is important to acknowledge and to be aware of what is underneath, or what is the underlying cause of the escalation, because that can help shift the energy for the adult, not for the child, but for the adult, in understanding where those strong emotions or where the aggression is coming from. Because if we're just responding to that aggression as though it's just a behavior, kind of being able to, in that moment, rewind even for a second to think about, well, what was happening before this? Are they hungry? Are they thirsty? Are they, did they just lose a game? Did they just get home from school and they've used up all of their energy trying to get through the day, and then they come home and they take it out on me, they take it out on brother or sister, or they take it out on whoever is around. I think there's a lot of good information that can be gotten from just taking some time to quickly scan through some underlying causes that might be the possible causes. The question is about, once that window has passed, what do you do? And I feel like safety is very important. And so I have spent many times behind a closed door. When my son was younger, he would have strong emotional reactions to things. And I would say, instead of putting him in timeout, I would put myself in timeout. And I would go into my room, or I would go into the bathroom. I would go somewhere and I would close the door. But I had a mantra that I used with him that was very helpful. And it was, I will help you when your body is calm. Because he would inevitably come and he would just be on the other side of the door and he would be banging on the door. And I would say, because realistically, I can't help him when his body's not calm. And so I would say, I will help you when your body is calm. I can help you when your body is calm. there were times where we would just go and we would get on the bed and he would thrash around, and I would, if it felt like he needed some pressure, then I would just kind of do a bear hug with him, but he would still like be thrashing. But it allowed him to get some of that energy out. So I think, again, safety is very important. If you have other kids around, put them, just have them somewhere safe where they're not going to be on the receiving end of strong behaviors or strong emotions from the other child if you have pets and all that stuff. So keep, do what you can to keep everybody safe. But, and realizing that a lot of times they're not in control. It's not something that they're choosing to do. It's that there is a surge of emotional energy that is going through their bodies and they're not in control. I equate it to PMSing, and it's not that's not something that we can control. But if you want to, or if you have the opportunity to keep your body regulated during that time, and say something like, it seems like your body seems like it's in the red zone, or I'm noticing that your body is in the red zone. What, do you need help, or how can I help you? Trying some different things out to see if there's something that can be the stick in the wheel, or is this something that they just need to ride it out and let the energy go? You might say, do you want me to go into the room to calm, or do you want me to, or do you want to go into the room and calm, or do you want me to stay with, do you want me to stay with you while you calm? Keep the verbal engagement to a minimum, because the more that we engage verbally, the more it's almost like adding tinder to a fire, and it's just going to keep escalating things. And so the more that you can just say one thing, that's why I use the mantra, just one thing, keep it simple, keep it, to basic choices, and see how it goes. And this is all trial and error during those situations. Now, after the fact, I would definitely, once everything gets back to a place of baseline where the emotions have calmed, I would start to teach them about recognizing in their bodies, like when an escalation, or I call it like the volcano, when it's starting to erupt or when it's starting to feel big. And this is not a one and done thing. It's building relationship with, what does this feel like when you start, like, do you feel hot? Do you feel like you want to yell? How does it feel in your body? And use yourself as an example. And I will tell my son, I feel like when he's really just kind of going at it, and I start to notice that I'm wanting to escalate, I will say, like, oh, the volcano's, like, I feel like the volcano wants to erupt. And I don't want that to happen. What do I need to do? And he'll say, you need to go in the other room. You need to calm down. You need to listen, take some deep breaths. And so teaching them those same strategies of building awareness of what things feel like in their body, I think that can be really helpful. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love everything that you shared so much. We're going to take a quick break and then I will share my thoughts. During this month of planning and organization for big transitions, rhythms and routines have been absolutely essential for our physical and emotional well-being. So Green Chef nights are reliably and predictably a good night. We know the ingredients will be fresh and prepped, the instructions easy to follow, and the meal delicious. We're all still talking about last week's turkey tacos with mango chimichurri sauce, refried beans, and Monterey Jack cheese. Green Chef contributes to a healthy lifestyle with easy and delicious menus like fresh seasonal salads and grain bowls. And with over 80 weekly meal and market options, plus rotating options to suit a variety of lifestyles, whether Mediterranean, plant-based, calorie-smart, keto, protein-packed, gluten-free, there are always plenty of options to choose from. Whatever you select, you'll get farm fresh ingredients, organic whole fruits and veggies, and premium proteins, all delivered straight to your door. I love those 4 words, straight to my door. Oh, and one more thing I love about Green Chef, they have an app, which means it's easy to manage meal preferences and delivery from your phone if you want to. And I, for one, want to. I am in that mode where I'm making the most of little moments like waiting in line at the pharmacy or for the F train to pull into the station to tackle all of those to-dos. So the convenience of an app is key for me. Green Chef has a special offer for Tilt listeners. Go to greenchef.com/tilt50 and use code TILT50 to get 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months. That's 50% off plus 20% off your next 2 months when you use the code TILT50 at greenchef.com/tilt50. Maybe I've watched too many seasons of The Amazing Race, but every time I have to go somewhere on the subway, I treat it like a competition. It's all about making the right gut decisions about which route will get me there the fastest. Sometimes those decisions get me where I'm going early, and other times my gambles don't really pay off. Probiotics can't help with most gut decisions, but if your gut needs a little support, Ritual has your back. Their Synbiotic Plus, a 3-in-1 supplement, has clinically studied prebiotics, probiotics, and a postbiotic to support a balanced gut microbiome. I've been using Synbiotic Plus for about 6 months now, and it's become a core part of my morning routine. I take the mini capsule every morning while making my way through my inbox, whether I'm at home or I'm on the road, because it doesn't need to be refrigerated. And the capsule itself is delayed released, which helps it survive the harsh conditions of the upper GI tract for delivery to the colon, and that's exactly where we want it to go. Ritual invested in a study modeling the human colon, which showed that Synbiotic Plus significantly increased microbial diversity and the growth of beneficial bacteria. There's no more shame in your gut game. Synbiotic Plus and Ritual are here to celebrate, not hide your insides. Get 25% off your first month for limited time at ritual.com/tilt. Start Ritual or add Synbiotic Plus to your subscription today. That's ritual.com/tilt for 25% off. Yeah, so I loved everything that you said. So much wisdom and lived experience in those answers. Here's the stuff that came up for me as I read through this question. I instantly thought of Tina Payne Bryson and Dan Siegel's work, and specifically the book that they co-wrote, The Power of Showing Up, in which they talk about the 4 S's. The 4 S's are safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And those are the ways in which we want to show up to help our kids feel safe, seen, soothed, and secure. And I've had Tina on the show before to talk about this, and I'll have a link in the show notes page. But when she actually visited our Differently Wired Club, we talked about this kind of very specific scenario that the person who shared this question with us is in. And so I went back and re-watched that visit. And what Tina also said was how important it is that we avoid using threat-based control strategies, which can often be a default if we're feeling backed up against a wall or we weren't expecting this big escalation of behavior and we just wanted to stop, right? And so she talks about really focusing on those 4 S's, because then what's actually getting wired in our kids' brain is a more collaborative and cooperative way of being together, of solving problems, and where everyone's kind of getting their needs met as best they can. So Tina talks a lot about empathy, right? Being really empathetic in, and I agree. I just want to say I agree with Margaret. Like in the moment, sometimes less is definitely more in terms of verbal engagement. I used to say way too much when things were not going well. But sometimes a very just empathetic, I can see you're really mad. You have to go to bed. That doesn't feel fair. Doesn't feel great. And just leave it at that. But something so that our child knows that we see them and we understand that they're having a hard time right now, but we're going to be calm through it. So when we can show up that way in the moment, our kids learn that we can handle their big feelings and that we are a safe person for them. So those are really important things to keep in mind, that we want to, ultimately help our kids learn resilience, right? Through this idea that, okay, my feelings are really big, but they're not scary to everybody. And actually I can manage these. So that's where we want to eventually get with that.
Well, and I love that. And don't expect that if you say, oh, like, I understand that you don't want to go to bed, or just the response isn't always going to be, oh, thanks, mom. Like, I'm so glad that that I'm seen and that I'm heard. There's probably going to be, like in that moment, they're looking for somebody to kind of battle with so that they can release some of their energy. So just keep going back to that of like, I know this is annoying, or I know this is frustrating. I know this is hard. And just know that it's not just going to be like this moment where they're just like, oh, great. Okay, I'll go to bed right now, mom.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, that is certainly not what happens, but what it can do is help us as the parent or caregiver in that interaction stay calm, and it can de-escalate things potentially more quickly. And I say potentially because if this is a new strategy, it might actually have the opposite effect the first couple times you try this, because they're not going to get the same expected response. And they might be like, wait, I want more than this. I want my parent to know I'm really upset right now. But if we zoom out and remember what we're trying to do here, which is raise kids who can eventually regulate their own emotions, and we want to make sure that they feel safe and seen with us and be that non-anxious presence in their life, this is the way to go. And I want to acknowledge, and I want to hear more from you on this, Margaret, too. In the moment, like prioritizing our own calm is not easy. And we want to be able to lend our nervous systems to our kids. So centering ourselves in that moment is so important. Again, like Margaret said, making sure your child's safe, but sometimes being on the other side of a door, you can verbally soothe through that door. One of the things that I used to do was like physically hug myself. So it would help me calm my nervous system, because I would get escalated the second my kid got escalated. So if I could like wrap my arms around myself and kind of squeeze my arms, I'm doing it right now, you can't see me, but that would help me kind of get back into my body and out of my head. And it would help me return to calm more quickly. Also, Margaret taught me the skill, simple but powerful skill of just taking that deep breath, holding it, slowly releasing it in the moment, doing that a couple of times, that triggers our autonomic nervous system, which can then help our parasympathetic nervous system kick in, which is like the relaxing, calm part of our nervous system. So take those breaths, couple of breaths, that is going to kind of help your body without you even having to think about it, naturally calm down a little bit. I'm going to share one other pro tip, something I used to do just to kind of shake things up. Sometimes in the middle of a big escalation and things were not going well, my kid was really dysregulated, I might just put on a song, either like a classical music song or sometimes a dance song, and I would start dancing. I would do something really unexpected and something that could capture my kid's attention in the moment, and enough that it would kind of stop whatever was happening, if that makes sense. So sometimes doing something really unexpected, and you can do this with humor or other things too, but in the moment can shake things up enough and disrupt what's happening. So that's kind of like it's not something I could rely on all the time, but every now and then it worked really well. I'm going to share a couple of resources because the person who asked the question asked specifically some other people to tap into for ethical ways to navigate. So I'll share those in a moment. But Margaret, I just want to ask you how you took care of yourself in the moment. Like, what was your strategy?
My strategy was to do the opposite of what I was feeling, which was like you were talking about, we want this to go away and to be done and be over with as quickly as possible. And so I had to do the opposite and slow myself way down and like almost go in slow motion and it was so uncomfortable at first, because it is uncomfortable to be in the midst of those strong feelings and behaviors and emotions. But I just had to I had to slow how I was talking. I slowed my body. I slowed my breath. everything just slowed way down because I noticed in reflection during these times, I wanted to go fast. I wanted to put it out. I wanted to be done. I wanted to move on. And that was just feeding the fire. And so doing the opposite was the most helpful for me to regulate and calm myself.
So helpful. So I just wanted to lastly share some people you could check out if you want to learn more about these in the moment strategies. So my list is what you mentioned in your question, Dr. Mona Delahooke. She has so much information on her website where she keeps a blog, and you'll likely find more strategies for in the moment, but her book, Brain Body Parenting, has a lot of great information. Tina Payne Bryson, who I mentioned, has talked a lot about this on Instagram and in all of her writing. Hunter Clark Fields, she's the Mindful Mama Mentor. She's been on the show a couple times. She has a podcast, and she's really good about staying calm in the moment. We've talked about that on the show. Dana Abraham of Calm the Chaos has some great strategies. And then, of course, Margaret. Margaret did a podcast with me probably 6 years ago called Getting Through Difficult Moments. So that's a great listen. And Margaret also has a lot of strategies in her book. So I will have links to all of that in the show notes pages, so you can go check that out. So I just want to say thank you so much for that great question. I know that's a question that so many people are dealing with aggression, and it can be so perplexing to know how to respond in the moment in a way that feels right and in alignment with our values. So thanks for that. And thank you so much, Margaret, for joining me to talk through it.
So fun. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody. You've been listening to the Tilt Parenting Podcast. To learn more about the resources mentioned in this Parent Lean In episode, go to the extensive show notes page on tiltparenting.com. To submit a question for a future episode, just go to tiltparenting.com/leanin. That's tiltparenting.com/LEANIN. If you're looking for personal support from me and connection with the phenomenal community of parents raising neurodivergent kids, join us in the recently rebooted Differently Wired Club. The new Differently Wired Club can help you cultivate the positive shifts you're hoping for. Go to tiltparenting.com/club to learn more. The Tilt Parenting Podcast is hosted by me, Debbie Reber, author of Differently Wired and the founder of Tilt Parenting. To support this show, please join my Patreon campaign, where you can set up a small monthly contribution. Just go to patreon.com/tiltparenting to learn more. If you want to follow Tilt on social media, go to @tiltparenting on Instagram and Facebook. Lastly, please take a minute to leave a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. That helps this show stay visible so others can find it more easily. And that's all for this week. Stay safe, stay well, and take good care. And for more information about any of the parenting resources Tilt offers, visit tiltparenting.com.
Are you overwhelmed by the things that get in the way of you doing what you want to do? Are you looking for ways to simplify life to better align with your values? Do you want to create space in your schedule so you have room for more of the good stuff? Play, joy, relationships, gratitude, and more? If you answered yes to any of these questions, I invite you to check out Edit Your Life, a podcast to help you edit the unnecessary from your life so you have more room to enjoy the awesome. Through episodes with me, Christine Coe, and a range of super smart, compassionate, and thoughtful guests, you'll come away with big picture insights and practical ways to declutter your home, schedule, and mental space without getting bogged down by perfection. I have always believed that small moments and actions matter tremendously. My goal is to help you find agency and space in your life through doable baby steps that will leave you feeling accomplished instead of overwhelmed. Check out Edit Your Life wherever you enjoy your podcasts.